Welcome to Julie Whitney Scott Presents Let's Talk Theater, a Mind for God production sponsored event, heard only on WGRN LP 94.1, the Green Renaissance Station. Let's talk theater. Well, here I am with one of my favorite people. This guy can make you laugh. I don't care what the heck he's talking about. Anytime he is on the stage, you better believe that you're going to have a good time watching Mr. Robert Cooperman in the audience. Hello, Robert. It's so good to see you.
Hello, Julie. It's delightful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I am so excited. As we said before we started this interview, how good it is to actually be able to talk and a one-on-one with our theater friends who we miss.
Absolutely.
And that. So I am very happy and appreciative that you accepted my invite to
Absolutely.
Let's Talk Theater.
Let's do it.
I want to start off. I always start off because I think it's important that people know who you are and why. The why do we do what we do and spend the time that we do. You, of course, are Stage Right Conservative Theater and the owner, founder, co-founder.
Founder.
And as we know, that's a job. And so there's a why.
Right.
We do it. So why don't you start off with just giving our audience a glimpse of who is Robert Cooperman? How did he begin to even think about being in the theater world at all?
Oh yeah. Well, it goes back to, I think I was in about third grade. Now I'm from Queens, New York, originally. You'll pick up my accent. I know you know it, but your audience member may not have heard me speak. But so I grew up in New York City, and we were in third grade, and we went on a class trip into Manhattan to the Metropolitan Opera. And they were doing a dress rehearsal of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro. And I fell in love with it. Now, I have no great knowledge of opera, but just the spectacle of it, the music, the costumes, and the story. And I remember we bought a little libretto, and I was devouring what they were saying. And at that moment, I said, you know what? This is something I really want to be involved with. So I was young, I was third grade, 8? And then I remember as I continued in elementary school, we would have, and I'm sure you all did too, these things called assembly. So it was Wednesdays, and we had to wear a white shirt with a tie, and we would they'd show films and they'd give announcements, but they also would do presentations and productions. Sometimes another school would come and bring its production. And I just was sitting there saying, I want to do this. I want to produce something for the audience. And I had all these ideas, and I wanted to perform too, and I wanted to sing, and I wanted to dance. The only problem was I can't sing or dance. So I had to take that out of the repertoire. But I just wanted to be part of it. So from those early years, I was so interested in becoming part of theater and performance. And all through, it didn't really happen for me until high school, when I was a junior in high school. And I said, you know what? My friends are in plays. Why can't I'm going to try out. So I tried out for this play. It was called Never Too Late. And it was a play that was on Broadway in the mid-'60s with Paul Ford, who you may remember from Sergeant Bilko. And Paul Ford played, and his wife were middle-aged couple who find out that they're going to have a baby. That's why it's never too late. So I wanted to play. So in this household, there was the Paul Ford character, the man, the middle-aged man, the middle-aged woman. And then they had kind of a goofy son-in-law. That was the part I wanted. I wanted the goofy son-in-law. And I auditioned, and I didn't get it. However, the person who did get it was a little bit out there. Let's just say that. He was a little out there. And he was thrown out of the play about 2 weeks before we opened. The director threw him out and handed me the script. And I got to play that role. And that was it. I even have pictures of it. And I was in high school, so that was in 19 of, so.
Now, Robert, now hold it. You're when you talked about assemblies with the white shirt and the tie, you gave our age away, because I was nodding my head like, yes, I remember those. Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've gotten you up to your first performance. Okay. And first off, I want to say, I think it's really interesting and cool, man, that at such a young age, at 8 years old, you didn't just want to be on stage, and perform and have people look at you and laugh and clap at you. Your little brain was already thinking about, I want to produce that. I want to bring something to life. And most kids that age would not even think like that in regards to theater. They're thinking about, being the star. Wow. So when you figured it out, after you got your acting part, when did you decide that you were going to have your own production company? And we're going to talk about what it took for you to do what you wanted to do and name your theater what you wanted to name it, knowing the controversy of even saying conservative theater. I want you to talk about that, because I think that's so important. Theater is important, and voices are important. No matter whose voice it is, that's what theater was made for. I mean, that's what it stood on. So talk about that, because I am sure that there are people out there that just hearing the word conservative would be put off, because it was a bold move to do that. And I respect you for that, because everybody, a lot of people want to go with the crowd and want to go with what you did with putting conservative in your theater company is what I had to do when I put God in mine. So let's talk theater, Robert.
Okay. Well, thank you for saying that. And I respect you as well for the work that you've done, because we both love theater. And that's number one. So fast forward after that I was acting then in high school and in college. And the other thing that I was really interested in, even at a very young age, was writing. So playwriting, that's when I came into my own in playwriting, was when I was in high school, and started writing little skits and things, and then actually had plays produced when I went to college. I had some of my plays produced in college. But as far as the producing side of it, I was a theater major, wanted to perform and things. But that bug that I wanted to produce was still in me. And so, as I matured, some would say I never did, but as I matured, I started to find myself not only as a person who thinks about theater, but a person who thinks about culture, and a person who thinks about society, and a person who thinks about politics. And I was, an outlier in college, because I had very different views than most of everybody else there in the theater department. And I started to think, after I moved from New York here to Columbus and was doing some plays, playwriting was really my focus, but I started to think, I'm seeing so many plays, and I never kind of see my point of view being presented. When conservative people are presented, sometimes they are presented like bumpkins and know-nothings, and they need to be educated. And I was like, there's a lot of smart conservative people out there, just as there's smart liberal people out there. And so it started to bother me that what I felt was that the conservative voice, the conservative perspective on things, was not being seen, let alone in the arts in general, but in theater. So I actually started a little podcast a few years ago called, you'll never believe it, Stage Right. And because I'm not very original. And so I started to do a weekly show about conservative theater. And, you know, look, let's face it, there wasn't a big audience for it out there, and I didn't really know how to market myself, but I enjoyed doing it, and I learned a lot. And one of the things I learned was that in Philadelphia in 2012, a young lady who was a theater producer and performer kind of said the same thing that I've been saying. She says, I'm a liberal. She says, but I go to the theater and all I ever see is my point of view. It's the only thing I ever see. She said, I'd like to see something else. So she created something called the Republican Theater Festival. Now, I hate the name because I am not going to tie what I do to a political party. I said to myself, wow, why can't I do this? Here in Columbus, we have a thriving theater. We have Black theater. We have LGBT theater. Why not? Why not? I bet there's a place at the table for me. And you know, what I am always looking for is a place at the table. I'm not looking for, well, that's it, folks. Conservative theater is here. The rest of you out. It's my voice, your voice, his voice, her voice, all together making the music of theater. And we had one performance. That's all I could afford. And it was in January of 2017. I marketed it as best as I could. And we had quite a number of people that night. And I said, you know what? There's a need being responded to here.
One of the things that is so important with theater is that we supply that need. We have to supply another point of view for people to even consider that another person, have empathy about another person, to even understand why a person does what they do based on their thoughts. It gives you an opportunity to not just stay in your own bubble, but to educate yourself. And who knows, depending on what you see or hear, lots of minds have been changed. Lots of relationships have been developed from just knowing another person's point of view. So talk a little bit about the festivals, just talk about that part of theater, of taking on and deciding that I'm going to do company. And I'm glad you brought in the piece about the writing, because the writing is so important. You can't have theater without writers. In your conservative theater, the playwrights, how you choose them, how do you figure out what you want to present?
You know, Julie, it's very challenging getting the plays. You know, I knew what I wanted to do in terms of a festival, and I also have to give credit to Mark Philip Schwamberger, because of Evolution Theater Company, because I had worked with him at Evolution on a few things, and he was kind enough to actually produce a play of mine. And I learned from him how to put on a festival, because he had done festivals, original playwriting festivals, and so I was involved with a couple of them. And so I really learned from him how to do that. And so I had a call for plays. You know, there were certain playwriting submission groups. And I was shocked when I got 35 plays from all over the country. And the majority of the letters or little, notes that accompanied the plays were from the playwrights who said, thank you for giving us, or giving me, an outlet to send my play. He said, I really appreciate that you're there. So, I was thrilled to have that many plays to look through. Now, listen, I'm a playwright myself. So, it's good to be the king. I put on a play of my own too. Let's not kid ourselves. And I do that. I've done that a number of times, but not exclusively in the festival. And so what am I looking for? Well, one thing is, on my website, I talk about what I think conservative theater is and what its basic tenets are. And while that's still evolving, I have to say, it is still evolving. But I ask the playwrights who submit plays to kind of address that with their submission materials. How is this play conservative? Why do you think this is a conservative play? And some are very thoughtful, and others are like, this is a conservative play because it involves a married couple. And I just, okay. But the thing is, so I'm looking for plays that are going to address this point of view. But I'm also looking for plays that are going to entertain, that are good plays. And, let's face it, you can get 35 plays, but you're very lucky if you get 5 good ones. Just because it's a conservative play, and that's what I'm looking for, doesn't mean I'm going to produce it, because it's got to be what I consider to be a good play. A good play meaning it entertains and enlightens, and is done so. And you look for scripts, and you're a writer, you look for scripts where there is some knowledge of how a theater works, because I've read plays where cars are coming in and lights are going on and explosions are happening, and that's wonderful. We can't produce it. Can't produce that. I'd have to be at a Broadway stage to produce that if I'm going to do it justice. So you get, so I look for plays that are producible. I look for plays that are, that don't have a large cast and are short, because we do 6 short pieces in the festival. And you directed one last year. And as a word out there to playwrights, just because you got rejected doesn't mean your play is bad. It may be that you've written a play that the theater can't produce for some reason. Too many in the cast. They don't have at their disposal this kind of a character, or an actor to play that kind of a character, or it might be too expensive. So, that's something you learn when you get rejected a lot, as a writer, that it's not always the writing that gets you tossed out. So, I have to reject sometimes some very good plays that are not producible. And I have to think about my audience. There's been some plays that I thought were just too crude to put on. So you do have that balance that you have to maintain in, can I find a play that's entertaining and enlightening, that's producible, and yet also kind of sticks with my vision for this festival?
I'm wondering, do you get plays from minorities with their conservative view? Or do you find that it's only a certain race that you're getting conservative views from? Because there's this misconception that just white people are conservative, but that's not true. So, and I'm wondering though, do you get any plays from them?
Yes, but to be honest with you, I don't know the race or background of the playwright. I'll know if it's male or female, generally, but I don't know the race of the person. However, I do know that I have gotten plays from non-white playwrights. Absolutely.
And have you produced any? One of the things that I found is important in selecting plays so that I don't put my own biases in it, with the exception of usually if I'm having just Black Theater Festival, I'm looking for Black plays. However, it depends on the theme. This year's theme before COVID, I had already decided last year that I wanted this year to be inclusion, because that also involves Black. So I wanted inclusion, period. And I may do that some more. But when I opened that door up, I was surprised and pleased that all the plays we read were blind. When I got them, I immediately, because I told people send it to me 2 ways, and I did not look at the ones that did not follow directions. That when I said send a cover sheet separate from the play. The play needs to just have the name of the play, no identifying information, because when they would come in, it was easy to just separate that and not even look at and not connect it to that play. I could easily just push that over there in that drive, put that over there, and then later on, figure out and connect the dots. And I was very surprised at all of the great writings, plays that I received from Caucasians. And so much so that we ended up producing maybe 5 of them out of the whole 8 that we did. And that's why I'm asking you about that, because it was completely blind. We didn't know if it was female, male, nothing. We, like you said, we just read the plays, shipped them. We all looked at them. We read them, and we on a system based on, like you said, what we wanted, what we're looking for. Did they follow that? By that time it had already been weeded out. But nobody knew what we were reading. Who wrote them? That's so important, I believe. Sometimes, unless your goal is to just, I'm going to present, because people have the right to do what they want to do. You produce what you want to do because that's your money. And I am all for it. I am all for it. It's your money. So, but I just was wondering about that. And the reason I'm wondering about that is, like I said, it's because conservatives are not just white people. And I'm wondering if you're going to try to make an effort to see that the other side of what other minorities feel is conservative, and how they fit into that picture due to what's going on in our climate, man, and making sure that people understand other people's points of view that we talked about earlier, and having empathy about other people. Are you doing that? Have you done that? And do you even see the need to do that?
Julie, I would say that from a playwriting perspective, I'm looking for particular themes, let's just say, and whatever context those themes come in, that's acceptable to me. So, but on the performance side of things, we have had a very diverse group of people working with us. It's funny though, I just want to make this point that when I started doing asking for plays for the Conservative Theater Festival, a couple of people had said, well, you're only going to get white male plays. That's absolutely not true. I can't speak too much to the white part, but I can tell you, we get lots of plays from women. Lots of plays from women. As a matter of fact, we've got our plays for this coming festival, and 3 out of the 6 are women. I don't care, quite honestly, if 6 out of the 6 are women, or if 0 out of the 6 are women. I care about what the plays say. Now, from a perspective of performance, we have had extremely diverse performers, and for me, the criteria for working with Stage Right Theatrics is that you love theater. That's it. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your background is. I don't care. I have not sought out any particular group, minority for production. When we have a call for plays, we're looking for these criteria, and that's it. Okay. Now, I can see a point where I can say, in calling for plays, let's say next year, we would like to hear, we'd really appreciate to hear the voices of minorities who are conservative. I think we could, that's certainly acceptable. But you have to understand, from my point of view, it's hard for me to just put people in groups like that. I'm asking for a particular mindset. I don't care who you are. I just want to hear about that mindset. So, will we get the same kind of play? We haven't. We haven't yet. They are conservative plays, but they're all different stories. And let's just put it this way. I would have absolutely no qualms of producing a conservative play by a Black playwright, by a South Asian playwright. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care. I would certainly do it. But I have not actively sought anything other than conservative plays. That's it. That's all I have asked for.
That's good. One of the things I like about the plays, especially the ones that I was involved in, is that it gives us an opportunity to work together, number one, with different people. I love that. And it gives us an opportunity, as we was talking about earlier, to see different things, from other people. So one of the things, like you said, when we put our submissions out there and say we want plays, sometimes people respond to that just because of the name. Because in the very beginning, with the Black Theater Festival, I didn't get any plays submitted for, we had our 8th year. So for 5 years, no, 6 years straight, we had no plays submitted except Black plays. And like you, we weren't advertising for anything except what we needed in criteria, what we were looking for to meet production. And so that we could be able to put it on and afford it out of our pockets. Robert, what plans do you have for Stage Right's conservative theater?
Well, we are going ahead planning. Of course, 2020 was a lost year, with the exception of the Conservative Theater Festival that went on in late January and early February, and then that was it. We are moving forward with doing the 5th annual Conservative Theater Festival in late January. And I am going forward as if it's going to happen. Now, we may have diminished capacity. We're going to be at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. Once again, our friend Joe Bashara has come through, and we're going to be using that facility. But I am, unless something really major happens that stops me, we're doing the festival. And after that, I am thinking that 2021, maybe this is naive, but 2021 is going to happen. And so we're going to go, and we've taken our 2020 season and we've moved it to 2021. And so after the Conservative Theater Festival in June, we're going to be doing a play called When Your Soul Cries by Richard Bloom. You know the play because it was originally, a version of it was done for the Black Theater Festival. It's a play about the civil rights movement and the famous meeting, but a lot of people don't know that it happened, between Robert F. Kennedy, who was at the time the Attorney General of the United States, closing in on his brother John's re-election campaign for 64, and the meeting that Kennedy had with very famous Black artists, such as James Baldwin, such as Lorraine Hansberry, such as Harry Belafonte, Lena Horne, etc. And they met to discuss the issue of civil rights and would the Kennedys support the need for civil rights legislation. And people say to me, why is Stage Right doing a play like that? Because the idea that a people would be told they cannot sit at a counter, they cannot vote, and they cannot go to a hotel that a white person is at. There is no true conservative who would not find that appalling and abhorrent. And the idea, and that's one of the reasons why we exist, Stage Right, because people have to understand that we are not, conservatives are not people with a drawer full of white hoods to put on. You know, we are appalled by the treatment of Blacks in this country. We know what a stain it was on this country.
Before we close, there's two things that I always ask my guests to do, Robert, and I have to ask you the same thing. One, I want you to tell people how they can get in touch. Where do they go to find your website so they can submit their plays to you and also know what else is going on and when you're having your auditions. And I also want you to give a word of encouragement to somebody out there who is, you know, struggling right now with wanting to take a step out there and do something against the grain with their life. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have a website. It is Conservative Festival OH. It's long, I know. conservativefestivaloh.com. That's where everything is, our submission guidelines. We accept submissions all year long for full-length plays. We're always looking for things to produce during the year that are not part of the festival. And so that's the best way to get to us. It has all our information, and it has some interesting blog entries by me, and it has you could see radio shows I've been on, television shows we've been on, newspaper articles, etc. So that's the source of information, and you can see our email address and where to mail things to. So that would be the place. That's conservativefestivaloh.com. As far as helping people who want to do something against the grain, I would say, take my advice and do it. Please do not fear the repercussions. Be true to yourself and what you believe in, and do it. Don't be afraid. Don't worry about what people are going to say about you, because for every person who tells you you can't do it, you're a fool, you're a joke, for every person out there, there's another person who says, you know what, I'm glad you exist. And the greatest compliment that we get when we do our festival is when people come up to us at the end when we do a talk back and say, you gave me something to think about. Thank you. And I always say, don't look to change minds. Look to be respected. I say this to my writing students, and I say this to people in theater. Okay, if you go out with the mindset that you're going to change minds, you're going to feel defeated. You may change some minds, there's no doubt about it, but don't make that your end all. Make your end all and be all, I want to be respected. I want to be heard and respected. If you can walk away from a Stage Right Theatrics production and say, you know what, I may not agree with you on a lot of things, but I appreciate your point of view, that to me is the greatest compliment anyone can pay. because I'm not going to hear very often, you know what? I was a liberal at 8 o'clock today, but now it's 10 o'clock. I saw your play. I'm now a conservative. It's not going to happen. But people, what we need to do is respect each other. And then we can understand each other. That's all we are asking.
Well, what more could we ask for? Robert, I want to thank you so much for being with me on Let's Talk Theater and sharing your thoughts and being honest about how hard it is sometimes for us to do what we want to do and to do it letting people know that, as you just said, just being respectful of others, respectful for ourselves, and respectful for theater. So thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Julie.